On February 7th, 1964, the world witnessed a cultural earthquake as four lads from Liverpool stepped onto American soil for the very first time. They arrived on Flight 101, a Pan Am Yankee Clipper from London Heathrow. Now, before we remember that first frenzied 10-day visit to the U.S., it's crucial to understand the context of the Beatles' rise to global stardom. Hailing from Liverpool, England, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr burst onto the music scene in the early 1960s. They delivered a fresh sound that blended infectious melodies with charismatic performances. Just 6 days before, they had their first #1 U.S. hit with I Wanna Hold Your Hand. So here they were, in the flesh, greeted by 3,000 screaming, adoring American fans. They emerged with their bowl haircuts, mod suits, and cheery smiles to utter pandemonium at New York's Kennedy Airport. Beatlemania was here. With cameras flashing and girls shrieking, they were whisked off for a brief press conference. They charmed the press with their quick wit. Someone asked if they would sing, and John Lennon quipped, "Nope, we need money first." New York City, a city known for its stoic demeanor, was ablaze with Beatlemania that day. The Fab Four's motorcade weaved through the streets, with fans lining the sidewalks, rooftops, and even hanging out of windows to catch a glimpse of their idols. The city's iconic landmarks, from Times Square to Central Park, became the backdrop for this surreal spectacle, forever etching the Beatles into the cultural fabric of NYC. The Beatles stayed at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. When they arrived, at least 50 police were needed around the hotel to keep the fans under control. They stayed in the presidential suite on the 12th floor. Interestingly, after the sheer mayhem created by the Beatles' stay at the Plaza, Plaza management didn't want them to return. In future visits, the Beatles would stay at the Warwick Hotel. The next day was Saturday, and George Harrison stayed in bed with strep throat. The other three took a horse and buggy ride, posed for photos in Central Park, had lunch, and rehearsed at the Ed Sullivan studio for the performance the following day. Their road manager stood in for Harrison. He's the guy you might not recognize in some of those photos. That evening, after a dinner hosted by Capitol Records and 21 Club, they took a car tour of the city, taking in all the famous New York City landmarks: the Empire State Building, the UN, Broadway, and Times Square. The Beatles had a number of public concerts during this visit, too. Their first was in front of 20,000 fans at the Coliseum in Washington, D.C. Took place on February 11th. The following day, they had back-to-back performances in New York City at Carnegie Hall. Because of the Beatles' fan mayhem, the police had to close off the streets around the venue. Beatles kept busy with, well, lots of interviews and lots of parties during the remainder of their days in the US. Capitol Records president Alan Livingston even presented them gold records for Meet the Beatles and I Want to Hold Your Hand. They also made a trip to Miami, Florida to get some sun and relaxation. While there, they had the opportunity to meet Cassius Clay, and there's some famous photos of him knocking them out. They're pretty fun to look at. They also relaxed poolside and went for a swim in the ocean. The Beatles returned home to England on February 22nd. Their first trip to U.S. soil had been an unprecedented success. And it represented a cultural shift here, too. The nation was still in mourning from President Kennedy's assassination. American youth were ready for something different, and they certainly found it in the Beatles. Their music, their looks, and their good-natured rebellion. Where were you during those 2 weeks in February of 1964? Do you remember watching their debut on Ed Sullivan? Where'd you watch it from? Who were you with? Did you watch them on the news? We'd love to hear your memories and read them in the comments below. Thanks for watching Memory Mountain. If you enjoyed this video, please click to subscribe to our channel and hit that thumbs up button. Be sure to tap the notification bell so you'll be one of the first to know when we post our next story looking back over the landscape of Americana. And if you really like what you see, we'd be honored if you'd click to join as a member of our channel, where you'll get exclusive benefits and an increased voice in the videos you will see.